Alrighty. Welcome to Balcast. Today we have a bit of a mix-up. We have replaced Mickey for better humans to talk about TO stuff and community building. And we're going to start off today by just quickly introducing who each of us are, what games maybe we play, and what we've done as TOs. And I guess I'll just kick it off by being yo, I'm Zesty. I did the balcony for a while. I still do the bigger Balc stuff. Mostly PM. I've technically done PM and Melee events. I've probably been doing this for maybe 2 years now, maybe 2 or 3. I'm definitely post the peak of PM. I kind of came in more when the game had already kind of lost a lot of that core audience to many different aspects. So yeah, that's kind of my background.
Alright, I'll go next, and I'll get a little closer to the mic, because hopefully that makes a difference. I'm Jason Waterfalls. My organizing career sort of happened post-Paragon. That's when I started doing things. Before then, I was a community member since 3.02, kind of in the middle of that. I know that David's a little bit older, and yeah, Marco's older in a different way. So yeah, I did a lot of organizing for San Diego, then inherited some balcony stuff and helped out with that. Organizing on a local scale is something that, or organizing PM in the PM is sort of what my main contribution to SoCal was, as well as I guess helping out with the bigger Balc too. So that's my angle of TOing. Who's this guy?
Who's this guy?
Who are you? Dude, nice beanie.
Oh, I didn't think they'd notice. Maybe if I just stayed silent and they just continue talking.
We were only supposed to have one guest. You just didn't find them time to leave, I guess.
So tell us who you are, stranger.
Yeah.
All right. So some might know me as the mother of SoCal. Not their dad.
I feel like Marco's face says otherwise.
My tag is Humble Dojo. My name's David Lee. I'm one of the 3 founders of SoCal Project M community in SoCal. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we founded the Facebook group. We founded the tournament scene. Ran SSS. Ran Mayhem, Classic Mode, Symbiotes. We Live In, Legacy. Paragon.
Jesus, when you say them all in a row, it's really insane how much stuff you did.
Smash Road, I was running that too.
Oh yeah. I was only wearing the shirt.
Oh yeah, I love that shirt.
We could have both worn this shirt.
No, don't. Oh god. But the point is, I've been around for way too long. 4 years now, just running events, and yeah, here we are.
Okay. My name's Oats. I've been in the scene for a very long time. I don't know if we're focusing on PM or are we focusing just on PM?
You can
no. Whatever, Smash or even not Smash video games. I don't know how vague we want to go.
No, that's cool. I think we've all been gamers since babies, or at least since we were kids.
I never played video games until college, so.
Holy. Okay, so
we'll
come back to that at the end. We'll come back at
Nerd.
That's obviously not true.
So yeah, I've been playing Smash since 04, on and off in tournaments and stuff. I guess my biggest tournament, my TOing experience is actually in the Brawl age.
Ooh.
A lot of people in PM recognize me from Brawl when I used to host the Chula Vista Weeklies down in Chula Vista in San Diego. And then we had a national in Chula Vista. We had players like Anti, who's now a big Smash 4 player. He showed up. TKD, DSF, and Larry Lur, the big names that were big now, had their start in Brawl too, and in Melee. And in Melee, I also organized the Genesis bus, which is a yearly bus that takes 50 or more Smashers from SoCal all the way up to Genesis every year, or every Genesis. And other than that, I did pick up 1 or 2 PM in the PMs after you, Jason, after you left San Diego. And then and I guess I do some commentary on the side whenever they need help.
Ooh, yeah, top tier commentator. We have the team actually.
I was gonna say actually all 3 are pretty D's.
Yeah, what the hell? You're pretty good too.
Like I said, we have the team here.
There's a third hand that's referencing himself.
Random tangent.
Uh-oh.
Because you ran the Chula Vista weeklies when I was a Smashboards lurker.
Yeah.
And I was really little and didn't understand geography, so I thought that it was called the Chula Vista biweekly or whatever because Chudat went to them.
Oh!
And I was all like, wow, he's like so close. He's just in San Diego, but it's like Chula Vista is actually a place.
Yeah.
And
I learned a place in San Diego.
I learned that because of your tournament. So
no.
that's a part of
That's
my
your contribution.
I gave baby Jason some geography knowledge. So
that was before I met you. So.
And I don't think you really mentioned it, but you've actually been in the PM scene for a while too. I remember playing Tiger Millionaire in SSS.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So like you've been around for a little while, on and off.
On and off, yeah. But we'll talk about that when we get to there, because that'll be our third topic, I think.
Yeah.
So what's our topic, Zest?
Okay.
Well, I think Jason will probably kick it off.
Sure. So essentially, what we're trying to do today is to get a better understanding as to the community aspect of Smash. Obviously, like, we play a game, it's really fun to go over how the meta's evolving and how different tournaments are and results, players getting better and worse. But at the end of it, every scene is a community. And I think that the whole grassroots aspect is something that's sort of vaguely understood, but there isn't a lot of deep examination into what that is and how to improve that kind of stuff. So what we're trying to do today is figure out how different means of community building within the context of Smash. Trying to get at different sorts of perspectives. Obviously, we all just introduced ourselves. We're all from different eras of PM and Smash in general. We're going to talk about where the PM community is right now today and sort of use that as a diving board to say, okay, what are ways that we can improve this community? What are different aspects that the community has?
Cool.
So we have two topics afterwards that we're going to go into then. But for right now, I think that Courtney's like super plugged into the national scene and like literally like probably the most plugged in person to the PM Matrix in this day and age.
I don't know. Mickey was telling me like he drove me here. He said he was the focal point. He was the guy that was driving the conversations about national stuff because he follows like.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Like Mickey is definitely a nerd. That is like if you want to like.
I don't think that's the debate.
Like king nerd of PM. Like Mickey's got some competition. There's a lot of nerds, but in SoCal he is the king nerd. I'll concede that to him for sure. But as far as like getting stuff done and like being parts of like the large leadership. Like
okay, because I don't associate getting stuff done with Mickey. So
no, not at all.
I like that Mickey isn't here for this one Balcast and he's just getting roasted.
That's like what I've been waiting for this entire time.
Oh, I got you, fam. That's why I was here. Honestly,
some Mickey roast.
Yeah,
Let's just switch it to a Mickey
put me on the couch.
All right.
Roast of Mickey.
I'm down for that. But yeah, so pretty much I just think that like Courtney would probably have like the best understanding as to where PM is right now. So we'll obviously we all have like our interpretations. We all come from our own local scenes. So I don't know, just like kick it off. What do you think the climate is today?
I think like actually in general, like PM as a whole this year is probably the best year it's had since like the Paragon sort of like
the shutdown.
Yeah, the real death of PM sort of vibes. And obviously like we're still in this weird hole where like good things are happening, but people are still really pessimistic. And so I think that's like a pattern you'll find in a lot of scenes. There's like this weird mix of places like Chicago, and like some different areas in the Midwest, and like obviously like SoCal, NorCal for the most part. Like there are like scenes that are doing better and better. I mean, it's hard to debate if any of them are as good as they were at the peak of PM, you know? But there's definitely, like, a lot of scenes that are still super healthy. Chicago's, like, made its way back up into this, like being healthy again.
Connecticut. Right?
Yeah. But there's also, like, a good amount of actually, like, really, what would probably be seen as, like, capitals of PM, like, historically, they're actually not doing super great. So we have New York, New Jersey, who is, like, their weekly scene is, they have, like, it's really weird because they have so many good top players. They probably have the most top players. And yet, like, their weeklies have been, like, really having a hard time getting, like, consistency in numbers. You'll see a kind of a similar, like, slow downfall in Texas, like, parts of Texas. I know DFW has been, like on and off having issues with, like, numbers. I know that Arsenals has been really pushing that scene. And then also Arizona. I know I've seen, they've been kind of having different leadership a little bit over the last year or two, but I know that Arizona is kind of in a similar space of like, like, they have like a great stream, you know, because of Z-Man. They have like known players. You've got like Casino Wolf and Bagels and Blue. But
Dadpool.
Yeah, Dad.
Like, stop avoiding that name.
I don't know that I mean, maybe he's finally becoming more of a like historical AZPM name.
I mean,
but I don't know
he's
that
number 2 on the PRs.
Yeah.
Wait, is he really? I've been gone for so long.
Oh, Marco, things have changed, my
Holy crap!
Oh my god.
You know the time where like Robin Williams steps out of Jumanji? And he's like, what year is it?
No.
This is the year of the Dadpool.
Congrats to you, Dadpool.
Oh no.
But yeah, I would say that like it's like a weird mix of like some scenes that are actually doing really well, and then other scenes that like historically have done well are actually not doing as well. So there's like a bit of both, I would say, in terms of like the national world.
I think that what's really interesting too is that 2 of those scenes are so close to each other. So something that and I'll talk to the perspective of Marco, who may or may not have been like paying attention to the scene over the past year.
No.
But yeah. So I think that one of like when you say Texas, it's really it's interesting to dissect and dive into it, because I think that even though DFW has kind of been like, I guess, in conversation with itself as to how to bring itself back to the days of like Cephalon Lunchables being like PM Central, the center of attention. Meanwhile, like Houston, which is like, I guess, not too far away, like it's in Texas as well, but Texas is huge, so it's like actually like 4 hours away or something like that, maybe more. But Houston with Fuzz and Fearless, and especially the Smash United, like hosting like that Texas circuit with Arsenals, they've seen some of like the largest numbers this year as far as on the local scene goes. I know that they have like 100-man local.
Holy shit.
Oh yeah, what was that? It was Tech 100?
Something
Tech
like
100?
that. Yes. So like those 2 extremes are happening so close to each other, which makes it seem like it's not a geographical thing. It might just be like a community by community thing, and there are some like pivotal points where like a community can either turn one way or turn another.
Yeah, and then I guess we could talk about just like the local SoCal climate, as all of us to some degree are definitely more experts on that than the average person.
Yeah, I hope so.
I can talk more. But
Do it.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that. I thought you were saying we could talk about Go ahead.
So, yeah, I guess when it comes to SoCal PM, I know there's like, we'll, I guess, just talk in the very current world of SoCal PM. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely in the post-Balc age. So right now, there isn't really any definitive weekly that everyone goes to. Like, for people who aren't in Southern California, our scene is kind of split up into, like, different chunks. You've got, like, OC, which is, for the last, like, year or so, been kind of seen as, like, the heart of, the SoCal PM in terms of, like, getting the bigger numbers in tournaments and top players and whatever. There's also San Diego, which is like a mild, like an hour to 2 to 3 hours, depending on how south you go, which is, I think, historically was a heart of SoCal for a good amount of time. Yeah. You've also got, like, the desert, which is, like, its own, like, how far away is the desert? Like,
there's High Desert, and then there's Coachella Valley, the CV.
Yeah, like, SoCal's, like, a pretty chunky, and then there's also got, like, LA, which is, like, I would say probably, like, the longest standing, not a lot happening in that area. I don't know that they've like ever really had like, have they ever had like a definitive weekly that's been like consistent there?
Weekly.
Like I know that they've had
tournament
weeklies.
there,
yeah,
but I can't say weekly.
Yeah, and then obviously we also have like kind of like bits of like SenCal, SoCal that kind of mix together with like SLO and whatnot. And then I guess in terms of just health, we just, like, have been seeing a bit of a dip in terms of, like, the energy in SoCal, the amount of people moving and going to events in SoCal. A lot of people are just kind of sitting around waiting for whatever they think will be the next big thing. That's kind of the overall vibe, I think. So a lot of people are just kind of waiting. It's like a weird transitional period. I don't know how other people feel about how people feel about SoCal PM.
David, how do you feel, dude?
Well, yeah, so I'm assuming we're just going to be pretty much getting into it right now, getting into the meat. Not yet.
How do you feel about SoCal? Is what you asked.
Take your time, David. We've got.
You can interpret it as meat. Interpret it as cheese, bread, whatever.
All I know is I'm kind of old, and it takes me a little while to get into things, so I'm sorry.
He's like 24 years old, right?
25. Okay, so
Marco is sitting here actually being ancient.
Yeah, dude, I'm like turning the.
I started mailing in 04. Okay, sorry guys, enough derailing. SoCal. And the question is like,
what do you think the current health of SoCal is in terms of tournaments and I guess like maybe like the community as a whole? Like, how do people feel about SoCal PM? And I guess how you feel about SoCal PM.
That's like 3 different questions. Because you're asking like what the health is, what do people think about it, and what do I think about it?
Well, I guess more just like the overall tone. I mean, like, we'll get into like the deep mechanics of like what tournaments are, like how tournaments are doing and like what's working, what's not working. But I'm just asking, like, as a whole, how do you think SoCal PM is doing right now?
Okay, I can answer that. All right, so I think right now, as a whole, SoCal PM is, I'm not gonna say they're chilling. I'm saying that they're in like a
cryostasis.
It's not even like a cryostasis. I see things like moving and things are happening, but nothing like, there's not been a big momentum swing, but at the same time, there hasn't been like any like huge like death or any huge like terrible thing per se. Because I know balcony ending is bad, obviously, but like at the same time, there wasn't like a bunch of top players that just quit because of it, or it's not like So I mean, there's been some inactivity, but there are people who are trying to start new weeklies, or trying to start new monthlies. There's people trying to community build in like San Diego. We have like the IE trying to do more things. The CV, Coachella Valley is like staying active. They're still running events. They're trying to travel out. So like, even though it's quieter and a little bit more calm, I do still see the pieces in the background moving. So I think it's a different spot than we're used to, but I do see like potential and change coming.
Well, I just think that an important thing to keep in mind when having discussions like that is that describing and diagnosing issues is only really half of it and should be like taken in the context of, okay, I'm gathering all this information, but why? I think it's really important to identify and self-diagnose how you are doing as a community as well as the greater community as well. Obviously, like we're saying all these observations that we have, not to necessarily like put people on blast or whatever. It's just to sort of to take apart and understand, oh, okay, like these scenes are doing well, what are they doing right? Or our scene is doing this way, what can we do to improve it? So I think that when we're having these conversations, and I think that a lot of people actually do have these conversations about the health of their own scene, about the health of other scenes. Yeah. I see these conversations on Facebook a lot. But I think that what happens often is that they sort of end at pointing out the problem. And they say, oh, okay, like our weekly's not doing so hot. And then that's pretty much it. And people are like, yeah, I agree. Or like, no, I don't agree. Or it's like, come on, guys, like, you know, the weekly's dying. Or something like that, right? So,
dude, those are the best.
Yeah. So I think that what is important and what we're going to do for the rest of this podcast going forward is to really understand why instead of diagnosing what, and also saying what next. Yeah. Like, and sort of proposing solutions. And I think that this is like a good exercise to do for any community. And like, obviously, like we're doing it today, not necessarily because there's a need, but because it's something to always be thinking about doing, whether your scene is doing super good or super bad. And we don't have as many tournaments now, so like it's just a good time to sort of reflect. So the first thing we're going to reflect about is like an interesting point that I think that David brought up on Twitter either like a week ago or two, that was pretty much thinking about where the values of the community are. So I mean, it's a very vague intro, but if you want to like kind of elaborate on what your thought process has been, tell people what it is that you said.
Clear off the table.
Yeah, because I thought it was an interesting point.
Okay, now we're getting into the meat. Yeah, we're gonna sink our teeth into this a little bit. So just starting off, there's kind of been a lot of discussion, obviously, going around about community health, and I believe Courtney started off by posting and asking. Actually, Courtney, what did you post that spurred all this? Something about, because you're talking about the status of.
Let me actually like get the exact question, because like what I basically do right now is just like every Tuesday I stream like a Melee event, and so to like kind of kill time, I just post a discussion question every Tuesday so I can like read what people are thinking about. And they're to like varying degrees of. I actually post a lot, so it's probably not gonna be super easy. But I think I posted something to like the idea of like, what do you think you can do to improve the scene? Or I post really frequently because of discussion questions.
Yeah, and that's why I was trying to remember, but she was basically talking about the state of the scene And there were people talking about, I think something's wrong with the tournaments, or I think like no one wants to travel, people are being lazy, and I think this, and they were just really trying to talk about what is the core issue with the growth and the motivation of the scene. Mm-hmm. And I was hanging out with Nation, the famed Mario from SoCal, and he was just, I was just saying like, well, what you think about that post? He said, well, I think Mickey has some good points and Courtney has some good points, but they're kind of missing the core aspect of the problem. I'm like, oh really? What is it? Like, is it our players are privileged, or is it that that they don't want to travel, they don't want to put in the time? What is it? And he said, well, I just don't think they like the game. I'm like, whoa, wait, Nate, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, I just don't think they like the game. Because if they like the game, then like they would play it. And it sounds really simple. And I when I explain it myself, I like to rephrase it as like they don't love the game. There's like a passion issue, a heart issue. And if you like look back SoCal's history, there's always been like during any era, there's always been like a certain players who are like on fire for the
Pioneer.
game. And like, for example, I Punch Kids. He would get in his car, the Automobile, and he would drive anywhere and everywhere to play Smash. Like literally, he would drive to like San Diego and frequent the locals with Chaos. He would drive up to like the northern OC area, and he'd go play at like Fest. He'd go out to LA. He'd go out to the desert. He'd come down and play with like myself and Jared and the IE. Like that kid was like fiending some Smash. He'd be posting videos of him labbing, and he's like, look guys, I found this Lucario tech. And you would just see him just always in the game. He was like in love with the game. You look at people like Tills, who was always like going around going to Fest. He's playing with myself. He's playing with Venom. He goes out to San Diego locals here and there. He goes out to like the Irvine local. You look at people like Sosa who are traveling around. Like you just see the people who like really care about the game, like putting in the extra time. They play a lot outside of tournaments, and because of that, you'll see like their results, and like you'll see them getting better. It's because of the effort and the passion they have for the game, and it's like you can't help but to get better with that kind of attitude. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But the point is, like, I feel like we don't really see that anymore. And that's part of a reason why we're in kind of a dry spell, I believe, in SoCal. Is like a lot of people don't have the same love for the game. They aren't playing as much outside of tournament. Or when they're going to tournaments, it's more so for the social aspect, which is fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but like I feel like a lot of the times when we're trying to like push and improve tournaments, we're trying to improve on the social aspect, or we're trying to sell an experience, and not so much like the game isn't as much of a focus anymore. So I don't know. I think. And maybe it's like has to do with the PMDT disbanding, and some people weren't satisfied where the game was left off at, or some people just really want to play as Knuckles or something. I don't know what it is, but it's just
we
like
lost a lot of people to Knuckles.
But it's just like wherever the game is currently, maybe it's just like, oh, I'm sick of like Wario being in the top 5 characters, or Meta Knight's burning me out, or I don't know, whatever it is. Like people just don't seem as passionate or on fire about the game. Maybe it's just like the new game effects kind of worn off, so now they just have to actually like grind it out, where it's actually like more effort to love the game than it used to be. I don't know, but that's kind of where I'm coming from perspective wise.
And you said that Nation brought this up too, right? Like
yes.
Those are. So what really drew you to Nation's, like when you really thought about it? What really drew you to Nation's like opinion? His little knowledge drop there.
There was a couple of things. One is I was looking at how we like market events, and this is something I've talked to a couple of people about. I talked with Courtney and Jason about, is like a lot of times we try to sell like all these shiny bells and whistles to a tournament, where like you may have like some side events, or you may have like special like bonus ways to do this, that, or the third. You may like have giveaways of, like free food or all these other things. But a lot of times like what you're selling isn't so much like quality game related content. Is usually like extra fluff on a social level. So like for example, the balcony shutting down, we talked about how the balcony was like a social hub. Like yes, there was Smash Bros there, but it was like a chill spot. Like people would go up there, they would partake of substances. They would I don't know where this is going out.
Marco ate 12 hot dogs.
Oh, that was
a hot dog eating contest. Like I mean, that's like beer pong, hot dog eating contest. Like you look at like historically some of the side events at the Balc, which like brought in huge numbers. They weren't even like Smash related per se, but like they're really popular, and people come out and then they film it and they talk about it, and they type about it, post about it. It's just like, don't get me wrong, this stuff is really cool and you can like really like get numbers, but in order to keep those numbers, you have to keep selling a social experience instead of like the foundation of the game and keeping the game interesting and keeping the game. What's the word I'm looking for?
Fresh.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. But I don't know. I just feel like a lot of people are showing up to hang out and to like be social more so than to like get better or to like play the game. And then I also I posted a question on Facebook asking about like how often outside of tournament do you play the game? And the number one category was I don't play the game outside of the tournament. When this is it had a lot of SoCal members, but there's also out of region people. But number one category with like 60 people was like I don't play this game outside of tournament.
Well,
the number two category was like I play like 3 hours a week on average, which isn't that much. And then I think the next highest one was like 1 hour or something. Yeah, hour or less. And then after that we got to like 5+ hours, 7+ hours, and I think like that was the highest, or maybe there's like 8+ hours. But it's just like on average, people aren't really playing the game that much outside of tourney, if at all.
Yeah.
And I had to ask myself like, why is that? And I mean, obviously, like people like Jason are like super busy with jobs, and Courtney has hella projects she's doing. So like, I understand real life does get in the way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like my hands are dying, and I still manage to like clock 7+ just by going to like 2 fests a week. So it's just like I don't know, but I love the game. So there's a lot of things I do for the game and the community that don't make sense, and I don't expect that from others. But it's just like more thinking points is kind of where I was going with that.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, Marco, as someone who like, okay, so when did you join the Melee scene, or did you join in Brawl?
Okay, so I joined Melee in 2004. So I've been following the scene from Canon Hasn't days.
Okay, right. So I just wanted to know your take, because obviously, like, I only know PM.
Yeah.
And
obviously, you've been lurking in Smashboards for a while. He's being really modest, people. He's being really, really modest.
So I've been a lurker since 2005.
Yeah, so he's been lurking for a very long time, but he just doesn't want to tell anyone.
Yeah.
His first tournament is a tournament that I didn't go to. What was it?
OC3.
OC3. None of you even know what OC3 is.
Anyways,
we'll come to that in a different
regardless,
podcast.
I was like a little kid, so nothing really mattered to me. But as someone who was like actively involved in the community and like actually talked to a lot of these people, how do you feel about David's kind of point about like game passion throughout the Melee community, throughout the Brawl community, throughout its ups and downs? Because those communities are different than they were today, but I think that where PM is right now may or may not be similar to where they were at some point in the past.
How much time do we have? Sincerely.
Do whatever. I think to some degree it's like you want to keep it reasonable for whoever's watching this.
I'm only asking because I want to prime you guys with a little story that I'm sure everyone out there is going to kind of like.
Ooh,
I love stories. I love Marco's stories.
Oh,
so, okay,
Good, Marco.
We're going to do a little mental like experiment here. Think back to the time when you first decided, when you were first playing the game, Smash Brothers, right? You were playing it with probably like a friend, a cousin, a family member, maybe even someone that you don't really talk to anymore. But you were playing the game because you loved it. You had fun with the game, right? Now, something might have driven you, or something kind of like sparked something where you're like, you know what? I'm losing to my buddy, my pal, my sister, my cousin, whoever. I kind of want to be better than them at this moment in time. Or am I better than them already? Who's better than me? What can I find out? And that's when you discover like communities like Smashboards, Smash Reddit, or I guess All Is Brawl, or your local Facebook
All
group.
is Brawl.
Or your
Continue.
local... So, like, you go to your first tournament after finding this out, kind of like little browsing for a little bit, and then you think, okay, I'm going to do so well, you know, I'm the best in my block, I whip all of my neighbors' asses.
Oh, yeah. The classic.
And then you realize, like, okay, this isn't the dorm room anymore. I just got O2, like, I lost a set to this guy named Teals, this kind of scrub guy named Teals, and then I'm in loser's bracket. What the hell is loser's bracket? I've never encountered this before in my life. And now I'm about to lose this guy called Nino the Bloodlord? Like, why do people call this guy the Bloodlord?
And he forward smashes you with Bowser and you go home and cry.
And you're like, damn, I could beat my little brother's ass day in, day out, and I have a blast doing it, but I just went 0-2. 0-2, I don't even know what that is. No one even said hi to me. I went to this tournament, this guy's random-ass garage. It was kind of smelly in there, and now I don't even know if I want to come back. And I feel like that's the story that 70 to 80% of Smashers, first-time Smashers, encounter. Like they go 0-2 in tournament and they're not sure if they want to come back. Usually that decision point, that whether they go left or right on the fork in the road, it's like am I competitive enough to get better at this game and to prove those motherfuckers? Oh, sorry, to prove those buttholes that I deserve to get better than 0-2?
That's right. This is Balcast. Please censor yourself.
I don't know. I
don't know where this
is. This PG-13? Is this rated R? Like,
you can say whatever you want.
Okay. So, am I gonna go get better or stronger at this game, or am I just gonna kind of give up and say, you know what, that was kind of fun. It's not me. I'm just gonna go home. So there has to be something that convinces this kid, this boy, this girl, this whoever, that they want to continue playing that competitive drive. Something's gonna have to spark it. So, you asked me if over the course of my practically
Melee brawl,
everything, you can tell when someone is really, really passionate the first time they enter a tournament. And the tell-all about it is how serious they are in the middle of the set and how they take their loss. If they're disappointed, dejected, and they look like they're just like about to cry, that person's coming back. That person's coming back.
Okay.
If they kind of just shrug their shoulders, yeah, it's kind of fun, and they kind of smile through the whole thing, they don't really have the fire in them because they took it as kind of like a social experience, an experiment, and they're just like, okay, it's not like playing with my cousin, it's not like playing with my sister or my best friend or my neighbor or even just having my dog have a controller like in its paw. It's not like that at all.
That's my training part.
But there is a saving grace. And the reason why I was kind of like reading your Twitter post and I was like, okay, I mean, I like what David's getting at. He's getting at the right idea. Mm-hmm. And I like the stuff that, because you quoted Nation. And you were also talking about, this was after Project San Diego, like that secret hashtag that everyone was kind of talking about and no one knew anything about for a while. So I was like, okay, so maybe he's kind of referencing that or anything. But in my whole experience, the way to kind of convince that person that they should stay is, number one, by becoming their friend. Mm-hmm. Like just being friendly with them and kind of like inviting them back and then like showing them like, hey, playing with me is kind of like, it's almost like a proxy for playing with your neighbor because I'm going to have just as much fun with you as you are with me. And that's, when you said like it's not about the social fluff around the whole tournament experience, I kind of disagree with that. Mm-hmm. And my best example is actually using Jason because when he came to San Diego and he started doing PM in the PM, San Diego PM was kind of almost stagnant. And what Jason kind of brought was kind of like a little bit of zest. Not this zesty, but like a zest.
He came eventually.
Eventually, zest, a passion for the game that you really can't bottle or kind of like describe. And a lot of it had to do with kind of like the side events that he kind of threw. Some of them successful, some of them not. Like the marbles, where you collect marbles, kind of like gym badges for beating certain players of a certain rank.
Which I stole from David.
Which he stole from David.
We stole from the Sandy Boys.
And then there was also kind of like a bounty that you put on certain players' heads for out of county players that came down to San Diego. And that's off the top of my head, but there's other type of like cool little knickknacks that you were tossing at people, and they got people to go. And I think what my response to that, and this is just from years of experience, was when you have new people there, you want to make friends with those people because those people are going to be like, that friendship and that bond you make with them is going to convince them like, you know what, those guys were kind of cool. I didn't do so hot, but I had fun. So maybe I'll just go back and I'll have some more fun. And then eventually you'll snatch them under your wing and you'll be like, haha, I got you by the fucking balls now.
Now we're gonna play.
Now you have to play this game. Now you find it fun to compete. So, yeah, I think it's convincing them that competing is fun, and that's how you get them passionate about the game. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, just history lesson. I mean, I feel it wasn't really like condescending. I have you know,
Marco, let me sit you down.
I'm sorry.
Okay, young cat. Peep game. Yeah. So I mean, like, obviously, my TO style has always been one of interpersonal, like, communicating.
Oh, I'm not making fun of your interpersonal. I'm just kidding, dude.
Yo, cut the camera.
We're gonna have a fist fight
on the roof.
Balcast first.
Oh god. So I was always about like engaging people, and sometimes it was at the cost of the tournament, which was my fault. But there was you can probably ask a lot of different people that at their first tournament or some of their early tournaments, even though I was like running the tournament, I would stop and like try to talk to them, engage them, when I could get games in. So like I'm all about, definitely 100% all about the like relationship of the community building. And even as far as like the Facebook group page, like I used to like ask questions, I used to like check in on people, I used to like talk to people after they get them playing. Like, okay, how was your tournament? What happened here? Oh yeah, did you try this? Did you try that? Do you want to go practice the matchup? Like, this is all stuff I definitely like. I'm known for as a TO. So like, I 100% agree. And that's part of why SoCal, like, I've always modeled it after a family.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
That's why I'm SoCal's mom.
We do have a family tree. It's not
we
updated.
do have a family tree.
Wait, you updated it?
No.
Father
it's
Jason?
from like a year.
I think that you were my mom or something. I didn't read it too good.
You were the dad, I was the mom.
Okay.
And Jared was the grandpa. But
New fanfic.
Oh god. So Quan, if you're watching, you know what to do.
Dude, he probably is.
Okay.
Let's please move on.
Okay, but on a serious note though, yeah, so like I definitely modeled the community, and I think that's part of why we had such tight bonds and we grew so quickly is because of like the social aspect that I tried to push.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like I wonder if that didn't become too much of a focus, because I think that's obviously good to like get them hooked, but like if that's it, if they don't have like a fire to get better and they're just kind of there to hang out, which is I guess is cool. But that's kind of where I'm at right now, is like, I feel like that's 90% of where people are at right now, and the other 10% is the game.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like, I mean, we can obviously make it last, but they can find that just as easily somewhere else. Whereas like a new game comes along like Marvel, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I love this game, or I'm passionate about this game for this moment.
Yeah.
So that's where they're going to go, they can get their social experience, plus they really like the game.
Yeah.
If it has a scene. I know, like, I've seen a lot of top players like, oh, you know, I'm grinding Marvel, I'm grinding Overwatch, I'm grinding Hearthstone. Like, whatever the passionate for the game is right now. I see them grinding there, but they will still come out and hang out here or whatever. But it's like, what if they get a scene there that meets both needs? And then, like, where are we at?
We're just a side bitch now. That's what we are.
Yeah, and I've been there, and don't.
Whoa, things are getting real.
Don't. But yeah, so that's kind of that's where my thoughts, because I 100% agree. Like, you need the relationship, you need the social aspect. But I'm kind of wondering like where the balance is. At least right now in SoCal, it's hard to speak for other regions because I don't know how they founded their scene. I don't know like what's important, like priority wise at their tournaments or like their Facebook group. I don't know if they even talk outside of tourney. I don't know. If they have like a pop in Discord, or if they're just like, oh, okay, the event is this day, show up, and then they play and then they go home. I don't know. But as far as SoCal goes, I know we do really well on the social for the most part. Well, we even go out and like have like the basketball game. We'll go out to the beach sometimes.
I didn't get an invite to that.
Oh, well, Fracture was on out there.
It was a massacre. It was just Fracture being really tall.
I think I like actually got tickets to a basketball game, and then went to like a Clippers or a Lakers game.
Yeah, Fracture destroyed the Clippers. He was so tall.
I'm just taller than you.
Welcome to sports.
Oh my god. Yeah, so I don't know. I definitely think we have the social part like on lock, and like people like the Balcony did a really good job of marketing it. It's just, again, I'm just curious as to like where the gameplay or the game passion is now in SoCal, and that's what I'm concerned about. And I think that needs to be increased for the good of the longevity of the competitive scene. Because a lot of times, like, people talk about, oh, SoCal's washed up, or only Sosa's making top 8, or, guys, it's always Sosa, Jose Grand Finals, what are we going to do? Like, we haven't heard it as much lately, but that's been, like, a reoccurring, like, complaint, but yet no one's, like, putting the time in the game. But we'll have good numbers at our tournaments, it's just always the same results. Well, it's changed, but this is all just, like, stuff that's kind of feeding into my point, I guess.
And this is a pattern that I've noticed that no one's really talked about, and I think it's kind of a cool one.
Okay.
So if you look at kind of like Smash statistics or Smash tournament attendance, not just in PM but also in Melee, you'll get the highest amount of turnout after a major tournament. So like after like a Genesis, or after a Shine, or after, and these are like Melee examples.
Yeah.
Or after
an Evo or something.
Or an Evo or something.
Or a bigger Balc.
Or even a bigger Balc. A bigger Balc. Okay, so going back to PM, like a bigger Balc, or I guess a Paragon, you'll have a blip in tournament attendance where people just are like fired up because they either performed well at the national or they even performed poorly. But something about,
or even they just saw it,
or they even just saw it. They just tuned in the stream. They're like, you know what? Let's. This is super sick. That's what the game looks like at high level. And holy moly, that got me amped up. I need to go play. So they'll practice for a couple hours and they'll actually go to like the next 2 or 3 weeklies, and then it'll just go back to normal. It'll just size down again. Going back to what you said about an action item, maybe we should figure out a way to kind of like incorporate either sending people to like majors or traveling as a group to majors to kind of like double up on that like on that social experience, because now we're a team, we're backing up each other, now we're a family, we're really building on that family bond, and then we'll lose and win as a family, so that'll kind of like refocus that drive back into getting better at the same time.
I like that.
Or maybe even hosting a viewing party. Well, I think we already do that, right?
It's been a while, but like balconies, normally we'll be running like a balcony would be going during.
Yeah, we would host Smash, like Smash Fest viewing parties. Yeah. I think those are
like
super
Olympus
fun.
had one. I remember. We did one for Apex before at Jared's house.
Oh yeah, that was sick.
But yeah, no, that's definitely dope.
I'll say though, like as just sort of a devil's advocate, I think that like that obviously is like one of many good ideas. Yeah. But like, how do you like kind of do that like for really new people, or how do you do that on like a big scale? You know what I mean? Like if your goal is to like really build up the community, I don't know if that necessarily is your goal. Yeah. But like, how do you necessarily get like new people and tell them to travel for Smash? I mean, I know that I just feel like that would be harder, you know, to be like, yo, you've been in the scene for maybe like a month or two, or maybe even like a year. I feel like a year is the beginning point when someone would actually consider maybe traveling for Smash. And it's like, how do you get like newer faces to like eventually reach that point?
I think you should like maybe offer like a travel voucher or something. I think you should really send new people out to Smash, not just because it's a whole life experience. You're actually on the road, you're traveling. That just goes beyond what Smash can offer you. That's when you're like actually incorporating like life skills, and you're like meeting new people, and you're seeing new places, and you're like, damn, this is actually kind of cool, and I can do this playing a video game. Like, what the hell? This is fun. And that would be even more of a selling point than just like amateur bracket or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, because I agree, because like for me at least, like traveling in Smash is definitely like what gets me hooked. Like the moments when you're going with your whole fam, your whole like regional squad to fuck up another region, it's like that's actually the most delicious moments. And like even like when people aren't doing well, like everybody's like all around like rooting for their boy, it's like super lit. But I think that like if I was just trying to think of like, I mean obviously we're just spouting tons of ideas. Yeah. But I'm just thinking like if I'm like talking to like regional TOs right now and I'm telling them like, yo, what are some like things you could do to push your scene? I think that still, to some degree, really just pushes the social aspect more than the loving the game aspect. Like, you'll get that at the tournament, obviously. Yeah. But I think that, like we kind of cheated because we talked a lot yesterday, and I've already been thinking about it. And I'm, like, in a hard spot because, like, I don't really play the game that much anymore. Like, I don't really have that kind of grip. And so, like, a lot of the things I add to my tournaments are very much, like, social, because like that's kind of where my place is in the community now. Yeah. And then like not as much like how do I push someone to like enjoy the game. So I feel like it would be really cool to kind of mix like we again talked about this yesterday, but I'm just trying to remember some of the examples we have. But like how can you like help people like not only be more social but do so within like getting a better understanding of the game, getting a better grasp on like how to practice the game, like different ways of getting good at the game. I don't know. I feel like that's like a frontier that I don't know that like anybody in Smash has really pushed. Like how do you like both mix like social and like appreciating the game works? I think like ultimately the social things like the Balc and whatnot, like they do help build the Balc or the community in the sense that like people will just like by talking about the events, by going to events, it just kind of breeds people to want to play outside of events because it's just like, you want to be the person who can make it into a recap post, you want to be the person who gets a combo on stream, maybe you want to be the person who gets to like get an upset and people are talking about it on the page, you want to get on the PR. Like I think all that stuff can kind of like grow upon itself. Yeah. But I definitely would like really love to like maybe even brainstorm or just think about ways like how do you mix both like appreciating the game and getting a better understanding, because I think understanding the game can also kind of help people just like want to play it more, because like once you like get past, because I think like the hardest time in Smash is when you've been playing for a couple months, you know you're gonna go 0-2 in a tournament, like how do you get over what a lot of people call like their first hump in Smash, you know, like you know you're better than like a new person, but you're not even remotely close to being PR. Like, how do you get people to, like, keep playing the game at that point? Because I think that's when you lose a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, I think that, like, I don't know, because I'm just sitting in the back thinking about, like, how to word stuff. But, because I do think that like it kind of goes down to like the two branches, I guess, as to how you have a strong community, and like this is actually something that's just as general community building stuff that I learned like back in college when I was like doing community outreach and stuff. But there's like the outreach aspect, and then there's the retention aspect.
Yeah.
So like, how do we make our community as big as we can, and how do we make our community as strong as we can? So I think that like definitely like what you were talking about like towards the beginning, Marco, about like, oh, how do we like get these people hooked? How do we make it so that they don't feel really shitty when they like lose and like just never come, right? That's a lot of like outreach and just like the first little like semblance of like what retention is. Right? And then I think that like it gets to a point where, you know, what David says, I think when he's talking about like people are kind of like getting burnt out about the game, or like they aren't playing as much as they used to. He's talking about people that are like 2 years in, 3 years in, you know, like obviously like to use like Nation as an example, when he was like playing Melee like back in the heyday, he like literally played like 7 hours a day every day for like the entire like his whole like first year of Smash was just that. And now he just like has other stuff to do, and like he doesn't like play PM and like honestly has like really never played PM to that extent. And there's just a sense of like as you grow older, it kind of like caps off as to not necessarily the passion, but like how you can improve. You can't improve exponentially forever. And it's like, how do you make it so that players that kind of reach those plateaus, players that reach those humps and like don't know necessarily how to get to the other side of it, how do you retain them and how do you instill passion for them? Because one aspect is like shoveling coals, you know what I mean? It's like, it's gonna burn for a little bit, throw the national, have the hot dog eating contest, that puts fire in the stove. Yeah. You know, like it's gonna get people to like come out for like a little bit and then like it'll like go back.
Yeah, that's how my stomach felt after the hot dog.
I'm sorry we did that. Like, it sounded like a lot of fun, but it seemed like the people that actually participated, none of them had a
I had a blast.
Tracy and Sosa were definitely
No, Sosa was well.
Yeah, that hot dog eating contest is on YouTube if anyone wants to.
On this channel.
Yeah, but yeah, like that's like one aspect, and I think that something else is just like you have like those players that have those drive, and it doesn't like when they play, it doesn't feel like you're shoveling coals. It doesn't feel like every week you like are uncertain whether or not they'll come or not, you know? Yeah. It seems like they had like the seed planted, and like it's just fostering an environment for that to grow. And I think that like the thing about like a tournament is that like, and this is like something that like I've been thinking about very recently ever since like David like made his post, is like playing outside of the event is like turning a community member from going to a party to actually becoming part of the community. And I think that that's something that a lot of regions, even if they have like low numbers at their events, that means that they don't know how to throw a good party, but like maybe they're still like a really big family. And I think that that's something that like at least aspects of the New York, New Jersey scene, even though they have like locals that sometimes like get like less than 10 people, they don't know how to throw a party. But like,
I feel like someone is gonna get really mad.
Yeah, I'd party with someone.
But like at the same time, like New York is like some of like the tightest like communities for certain aspects, right? So like their top players are all super chill with each other. They have all like these like stupid inside jokes when they come to nationals. Are super obnoxious, and it's really great.
Oh yeah,
you know? Yeah. So, but it's also a matter of like who gets to go in on the community and who doesn't, right? So like obviously like SoCal, like our family might not be like as close in some areas, but we have like a way bigger grasp, and that's like a really important aspect too. Mm-hmm. Like obviously like the core of it is like the game, and I think that the game is a good way to get people to feel that connection to each other and like want to root for each other and stuff like that too. There's like a lot of like rambly stuff to unpackage in all of that, but I think that these are like different things that people can be thinking about when they're like evaluating their own community, you know? And I think that that's something that David really brought to light to me, because for me, I'm like a very numbers oriented person, because that's a very objective way to figure out like, oh, am I doing well, am I not doing well? I have 23 people this week, I had 18 last week, that's an improvement. But as far as like the state of like, are my people hanging out with each other, are my people like actually like playing and enjoying the game outside of my events, or do they just like want to go to like the party I throw every week?
Yeah,
you know? And I think that's like a good thing to think about. And like sometimes like that means that like, oh, even though I'm hitting huge numbers, I have like a hollow community, or like maybe like I feel bad for having small numbers, but like my people are really tight, and that's something that you should value, right? So like, don't beat yourself up over like certain metrics that may not agree with who you think you are as a leader, as a community person.
So here's an interesting thing that kind of like sparked an idea in my head. So I have like three TO gods that I kind of look up to, and these are people that I've known.
Well, that's nice that we're all.
I was about to like juggle guy or something. My man like.
Alright, anyways.
So I have 3 TO gods that I kind of look up to and that I recognize as like these are the people that you want to aspire to be when it comes to setting up these like large national events. And all of them had very humble beginnings. Champ. Champ from 2GG Gaming.
Oh
or
my God.
2G.
Yeah, 2GG.
2G Gaming.
Yeah, 2G Gaming. 2GG. Champ from 2GG. Juggle guy.
Juggle the goats.
Juggle guy that does Big House. And then, undercover, Asian Lep. Asian Lep, you guys might not know.
I've seen that name on Smash.
So, Asian Lep was a San Diego TOing local powerhouse regional god. But, you know what? I'm gonna take off Asian Lep because you guys might not know the name. And I'm gonna replace that with Tricleman.
Oh, Trike.
Which is basically Asian Lep 2.0.
Oh, let's go, baby.
Well, we'll just say that he's the next evolution of that. But, so those 3 are my TO guys because they're always asking questions. And they always have this kind of like approach to where they're thinking, how am I going to assess if my tournament was successful or not? And what can I do to kind of foster the environment to make it a success if it's not? And one of the big things that Champ did during the Brawl days when SoCal Brawl was kind of dying is he had the 2 Goods Player Fund. And what that was is they would raise up money, they would fly out a player from another region. In the case of that, for the event that I attended, it was Chudat. They flew out Chudat, and then he had bounties on Chudat. So like if a player were to play Chudat in Melee or in Brawl and they were to take him out, they would get like an extra little widget or money or whatever, a stipend or something. And then, I don't know, man, I'm just tossing out words. Yeah. They'd get something. And then also for the person that hung out with Chudat, or they would get rewards for different levels of things. And I can remember how pumped everyone was because our best players wanted to get good so they could just womp on Chudat. They just wanted to like say like, okay, this guy that does the yayas thing, like we completely, he's been doing it for decades. we completely want to just bop him. So like we have to train up and get good and do it. So I think that maybe for SoCal, since we're not having these weekly events, maybe we can consider doing monthlies, or maybe we consider doing some sort of like big type of event where we invite someone out from another region, and that might light a fire under mid-level players to high-level players that think like you guys might have a chance, or maybe even reward someone for taking a game off, like a Switch or a Fuzz or something.
Yeah, and I think when We Live In was doing, we started kind of implementing flying players out, like with Oracle, Gallo, Soph. The Triple Tourney weekend was actually godlike, for example, because there was like a lot of I think it was mainly, Courtney, were you the main person like the brains behind like the incentives and. Because they had, like, if you attended, like, they had, like, carpool incentives. There was, like, if you entered so many brackets, there was, like, incentives, and you could, like, get higher up on the scale if you, like, placed certain, like, top 8s or top 16s. There's just all these different, like, incentives tied into the tournament weekend, as well as if you took, like, sets from any of the people who got flown out or things like that.
Yeah.
There's just, like, a hella incentives and just bonuses that made people, like, I saw a lot of people, like, were, like, getting super hyped, like, okay, I brought carpool people, so, like, let me get this many points, now I could get, like free t-shirts, I could get, like, venue for, like, the month, or I could do this, that. You saw, like, PR players, like, oh, I'm gonna mess up Soph, I'm gonna mess up Gallo, and I'm gonna mess up Oracle, and, like, people were just getting, like, really hyped at different levels, for that weekend, and there was, like, 3 tournaments back to back to back, and I don't know, I just feel like that was one of the main times that stuck out, like, when you mentioned that, where it was not only, like, we flew someone out, or we flew people out, / invited. I don't remember how we got there. We flew people out, and then not only that, but we had like extra things to engage people. So it's not just like, hey, we flew someone good out, so you should come and try to play him, I guess. But it's like we flew people out. There's incentives for beating them, as well as there's incentives for showing up and like placing so well and this that. So that kind of reminds me of that, and I just think that was like a really cool event. That it would be cool if we can, even if we don't do the same thing, but just seeing like more influences. Of like seeing that event influence more things we do going forward.
Ooh, that kind of sparks something in me. Why don't you guys, for an SSS for Melee a couple of years ago, this is when Plup was kind of getting good, and people weren't like sure about like whether or not this would work or not. If we're gonna fly him out, we need him to do something. So what Crimson Blur came up with was a boss rush, and it wasn't your traditional boss rush where you had your top players play against Plup, who was coming in. You had a C team, a B team, and an A team, and then Plup was a one-man crew against every single team. And every single time he beat one of the crews, he would get a little bit more money, or he'd get like a reward, and then move on to the next team. Whereas the team that ended up beating Plup would get like a reward based on how much of a disparity there was. So like if the C team were to be able to beat Plup, they got like some cool praise, cash prizes, and stuff like that. If the B team were like able to do it, then not as big cash prizes because you don't expect a little better, but like not so much. And then A team, you expect them to actually beat Plup, but I think Plup actually ended up almost going the distance.
I just remember Lucky.
Yeah, Lucky was... okay, we don't want to talk about Lucky failures.
Anyway.
But yeah, so maybe, like, the person that keeps coming to mind is Fuzz, because I just love watching him play. Why not just have, like, SoCal C team, people that are unranked, then B team, people that are ranked, like, in the lower, like, above like 10. Mid-level, and then you do, like, the A team, and then just have Fuzz just go through the gauntlet. And then just stream that. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I do want to kind of just, like, wrangle this back, because, like, there are going to be some people who are watching this who, like, are random people in the Midwest, and, like, I think that, like, again, these are, like, dope ideas, but I think the core idea here is that, like, regardless of money, like, if you take creativity, which in turn will make you probably have more fun with your event, if, like, you can look at your tournament or your community and address where you think problems are, and creatively think about those solutions, you'll probably get somewhere if you keep attempting stuff. I think is like the core idea we're getting at. Because like, pretty much like, to give an example with the triple tourney weekend, because like, I know like our group like thought a lot about like, how do we get, it was basically a mistake where we had literally 3 events in a row. Because,
on accident.
Yeah, we have... Adrian ran an event at the university. We had the balcony on Saturday, and then Sunday we had We Live In, and they all lined up at the same time. So our problem right there is how do we get people to go to all 3 events? And so basically, like what we did is we ran a fundraiser. If we have really cool out-of-region people, like that's like a huge thing that'll get people to travel because it's like a once, like that doesn't happen very often. And then our next thought was like, okay, but it's gonna take like a lot of money, and it's gonna take a lot of like effort to get people to drive. Like, how do I convince someone to drive all 3 days? And like, if they're already driving, how can I convince them that like go the extra effort to message other people to get carpools going for all 3 days? And so basically, it was just a mix of like a lot of different ideas that we like actually somewhat advertised well. Because I think this is like definitely a tangent, but like I've actually feel like I've reached a point where like sometimes we have too many ideas, and then it's like, oh my god, now they're getting messy, and it's like I can't advertise them. So I do think that at a certain point you have to like wrangle it in and like understand like maybe like really understand like what you're doing and how you want to like advertise that. But I think like a huge thing that I think will help people have a lot more fun in TOing and also make it so that, because we all know it takes time, like, especially if you're in a small region, you're not going to really be going from 10 to 20 to 30, or you're not going to be going, if you don't even care about numbers, you're not going to go from having a person who, like, has never been to a tournament to them being, like, your deep, like, homie that, like, wants to come every week in, like, even a month, you know what I mean? Like, that shit takes a lot of time. And I think if people, like, look at those problems and think about it, like, from a fun spin instead of like a oh no everything sucks spin, like I think that just means like a lot of people can have more fun even if things aren't going well. It just is an opportunity to like try more stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean like whatever you decide to do, whether it be like, taking on the social aspect, the gaming aspect, both, like I think that that's like kind of like the heart of what we've maybe been getting at right now.
Yeah. And I'll say that because I think you touched on some important stuff. I just like completely lost the thought when I started. So let me wrangle that back in real quick.
Wrangle.
We're wrangling. Oh, it's
okay,
a great word.
Okay, I know. If you guys don't get the hell out of here.
This is my house.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Dude.
Hold up.
You weren't even supposed to be on this cast. You were just on the couch at the beginning of it.
Well, okay, you're right. So, as a rando, I'm gonna go ahead and say that there's a couple things that you touched on, which I think are like super dope. So I want to just highlight them for a sec. One is mindsets when approaching the problems and approaching your scene. Because for whatever reason, like PM always has that stigma of like it's dying and like oh the game's jank and it's a legal mod, and there's always just these negative like perceptions surrounding the game. So like it's bad enough when like the people outside are like, oh, when I hear PM I think of these negative things, and then like if they come to our scene and they see us complaining about like, oh, my scene's dying, or oh, my local got no members, what's going on, and oh, this game's dumb and nerf Meta Knight and Game Watch is broken. Like, if it's bad enough when the outside is seeing the negativity, and then you come inside of the scene and, like, they're negative too. And it's just, like, that's already setting up for failure for growing and, like, bringing in new people, number one. So, even if stuff is bad, like, don't just, like, I'm not gonna say don't advertise, but don't just, like, complain about it. Don't let that be, like, your only note. Be like, it's bad, but, like, let's focus on getting better, and let's look at the good points. Let's objectively identify, like, what is wrong, and, like Jason was saying earlier, like action points, and figure out what you can do to improve it. The other thing I want to touch on is you were talking about ideas and brainstorming and just coming together. And I think it's really important when brainstorming and when discussing ideas like this is to have differing opinions. I think it's really good because sometimes people always agree. And I mean, that could be really nice for getting things done, but it's not always as effective as it could be if everyone's just on the same page all the time, because there's a lot of like counterpoints here. Like Marco brought up some points where I'm like, yo, I never thought about that. Or when I was talking with Jason and Courtney yesterday, they were like, okay, Dave, like we hear what you're saying, but like what about this? I'm saying like, man, that's like you're trying to destroy my argument right now. I'm not really okay with that, but you're bringing up some really good points. So like, let's unpack this. But like when you have like that friction, that pressure, the conflict, that's where true growth and like a lot of really crazy ideas can come from. When other people are bringing different perspectives and from different walks of life and just different mindsets. So that's glorious. So right now, if you're talking to like your TO team, they're all just like, man, stuff sucks and there's nothing we can really do about it. It's like, yeah, you're right. This is pretty bad. It's like, oh, man. But that's not good. But if someone's like, oh, man, stuff's pretty bad. It's like, yeah, but like, this is good. So like, how can we keep improving this? Or it's like, oh, well, that's bad, but this is like, no, that'll never work. How about this? Oh, that won't work. But it's just like you're getting ideas out there, or you're like at least getting further into the topic. And like the further in you get, eventually you're gonna hit something. Like it may not be gold, but you're gonna hit something. So yeah, I just wanted to point that stuff out real quick. So that's all.
You wrangled it.
I mean, I think that like that's sort of I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of mindsets and a lot of strategies that sort of translate and you can copy paste into different aspects of the community. Just because I think that like, and it's a really like nebulous word sometimes, like the word engagement, but like I think that what we're doing right now, like having this Balcast dedicated to sort of thinking about these sort of topics and increasing like how much we think about it and like different aspects and angles that we can approach things, really like helps like put colors and words to the situation and how the community is doing. That's what we're talking about today. And I think that this sort of stuff is also really important when you're talking about just like the specifics of the game, the specifics of PM.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like something that also like is something that can like always be improved on. Obviously, the players that are getting better at the game, the players that have like the highest drive, are the ones that like talk about the game a lot, play it a lot, think about it like a lot. So I think that, I don't know, like we as organizers can only do so much.
Yeah.
Right? We either put on events as community leaders, we can start discussions, we can like get people connected to one another. And I think that it's just a matter of making sure that what you do cascades to what the player does as well. If you have a community that's like a bunch of people, and I know that this happened a lot during Bigger Balc time, and it happened a lot during Paragon time too, was there like mishaps, but like the sort of positive spirit of like the community leaders at the time like led to positive change in the community. Like like something that I really think is like a really big deal for like the PM community. Like, and you know, it's like a small thing, but like Paragon had X amount of setups that were guaranteed, like kicking it back to 2015, was it 2016, whatever, 2015. Yeah, we had like 60 setups or something that didn't work. So like day of the tournament came up, David Lee was like, "Yo, tournament starts in 2 hours. We have 0 setups. Like I know, like can you all be homies and like bring a setup?" And we actually ended up with way too many setups for like what we needed. I actually like did my part. I brought like 7 CRTs like in a like a van, like dropped them off, went back home, picked up more, like from around the community and stuff. And I think that
I drove down to the Balc, made 2 trips.
Yeah, so like stuff like that, like that's like I guess like little like semblances of like what it means to be like a strong community and to know that like where you and like all of your like PM buds are at, you know. And I think that that's stuff that happens like every once in a while, but like you have to like kind of like think like if that situation happened right now, like is my community at a spot where that would happen? Is my community in a spot where like if I wanted to like have a carpool, people would be down? And if it's not there, do I want it to be there? And if I want it to be there, how do I do it? There's like a lot of different things to do. What is it? Oh, is that the
That's all the extra TVs.
That looks like at least like 24 extra TVs.
I don't know if it'll like.
Yeah. Oh, actually.
Yeah. In addition to like the 40 TVs that we had like set up for Paragon, we had all these extra ones.
Yeah, so you can see like the Paragon floor.
Yeah. So I think that like that's like it's always really
extras.
It's always really cool to think of like
There's
moments
a
like
big
that.
owl in this photo.
Yeah, big Al the God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's just like it's amazing what community effort, like the things that can happen from community effort when there's like the passion there.
Yeah, and it also just shows it's like why it's like kind of cool, like strive towards that kind of stuff. You can make stuff happen, and like you know, obviously, like at the end of it, it's sort of like why do I even care? Like why do I even want a community? Community's just stupid. Like what? Like I can just do whatever. I can play Halo 3. I just find myself in my room.
That's
and, like,
me every day.
But, like, there's like so much more to it, and I think that like understanding that you as an individual like have that power to instill ideas into other people and like make things like Paragon happen, like that's like super cool. And I think that like that's something that some TOs, just like speaking specifically to TOs right now, it's like they like kind of like don't think that they have that power or that influence, or like they aren't thinking in a way where it's like, oh, I can do stuff, I can like start a conversation, I can like get people together and get people connected and stuff. So I don't know, just to end my rambling.
No, dude, I think your ramblings, it's not. It's actually very directed and very on point. To kind of come back to what Courtney was saying, though, about smaller TOs in the Midwest. And sorry, Midwest. I mean, I'm sure you guys have big TOs, too. So, no, but like for small community TOs that don't really have the resources that SoCal does, or doesn't really have like the legacy or history that our region has, or that an NY, NJ, or Texas. Things that I guess you guys can consider, and I'm just kind of spouting out unsolicited advice here, but rely on the people that you do have. Like Jason was right in talking about knowing your community and knowing the people that make up who are passionate, who are not passionate. But that also goes beyond just passion and also knowing what these people like to do. For example, like let's say you don't have like really good players, but you have like an amazing graphic artist that likes to make posters in their spare time. Or you have someone that like loves to work on streaming or making video content, and just convince them like, hey, would you like to help me out? If they're your friend, if you'd like to help me out, let's make some posters for a tournament that I'm throwing. Why not just put that together? That's a resource that you have, like someone that you know that likes to do those types of things. Or if you know someone that likes to do commentary or likes to talk, or we have people in the community that like to do comedy, like Michael Diaz. He actually likes to do stand-up comedy. And I don't know why we haven't had an open mic night at a tournament.
Dude, if you've ever like listened to his commentary, that's like literally all it is.
But molding the community, your community, to kind of be a platform for your players, regardless, or whether it be their amazing play, or like Z-Man in Arizona, who basically hailed from a small community and kind of built it up around AZPM. If you have like either amazing players, amazing content creators, or just folks that just like to get together, work with what you have and that's what you have to do to build something, and just make that like wonderful, or just be, I don't want to say be happy with it, but like love it for what it is, because that's, I don't know, I think that's, I'm trying to say it like in a really nice way. I don't know. Jason, help me out.
Like, I feel like sometimes it's
I'm not nice.
You guys are the duo, so
there's like sometimes
kicking it
there's
back
like
to Paragon.
misplaced expectations, or sometimes you want things to be a certain way, but they aren't, because that's not the reality that you live in. If I'm like just some dude who's like in Hawaii, like Hawaii is doing what they can. They're like actually hosting and flying people over to their like small PM community.
Fly me over. I'm good at doing stuff.
Yeah,
Same. Same.
Yeah, so like just know that like curbing expectations and understanding like even if it's just like, and I think that this is something that David did. I'm going to steal it because it's like really good. He says if SoCal PM community was just him and Venom, for God's sakes, I don't know why, but like it was just them two like playing PM and like loving it and just like playing it every day, like in like at Jake's house. If that was the community, that's like great because that's two people having fun with the game.
Yeah.
You know, and I like sometimes it's like, oh, I want to be like that. Well, I want to be like that big, like hot shot that like has the 3,000 man tournament that is like has golden statues built out of like that's me. It's like, you know, sometimes it's not you. You know,
Yeah.
It's not any of us actually, but just know like community building comes from a person to person basis, and if the people that compose your community are all having a blast. That's
a pretty good community.
That's like what that's a degree of success.
Yeah.
You know, and definitely define success by your own metric and not someone else's. But yeah, I don't know. How are we doing on time? Because I don't want to like.
We're at 1 hour 10 minutes.
So I think that an hour is like a decent amount of time for discussion. If anyone has any closing thoughts, I think we can go around.
Yeah, might as well. Jason. No.
Last bits. Everybody gets one last bit. Okay, assuming, like, because I'm going to do my best to, like, spread this around to TOs, because, like, we're at a point where, like, I think, like, almost every other week I see some regional TO, like, you know, trying to figure out why their community isn't doing it, like, isn't being the way they want it to be. What would you, like, whether it be advice or your own experience, like, what would you say to someone if they were asking you for help with their community? Just vaguely.
Okay, I'm actually gonna use San Diego as an example, because that's kind of my project right now, is to help San Diego, like, just kind of help them, because they have a lot of ambitions and they have the resources, but just things aren't quite lining up.
Like the direction.
Yeah, so, me personally, and this kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, but that's a good thing. If I'm like here wrapping everything up and it's all staying relevant. But you have to look at a couple aspects of your community. One is going to be like the social aspect that we were talking about. How are you engaging players? Do they feel like there's somebody when they're there? Or are they just showing up, losing, and going home? Are you like, do you know their names? Do you like know anything about them? Do you guys spend time? You play games? Do you like go out and get food after? Like, there's a lot of different social aspects. Like, when they come up to report their scores, you're like, oh yeah, I know who you are. I know who you play. Like, just like, is there a kind of like personal relationship there with like your players, especially the newer players? How are you like retaining them? How are you engaging them? So there's the social aspect to look at. There's the gameplay aspect. Like, are you having Smash Fest? How are your brackets doing? How are you running them? Are you running a good tournament? Are you providing like side events? Are you providing different like incentives for people to come out, whether it be discounts, whether it be like they're getting points towards some kind of goal or something? So I think it's important to engage the social aspect, to engage the game aspect as far as like your events, as far as Smash Fest. Even something like something that Nation and JPI were doing, Red Ranger, is that they were doing like Discord calls where they would like go over VODs, and like everyone would like just jump in and then they'd like watch a VOD and they would just discuss what was going on, and that sounded really dope. So it's like what's going on like with the game and your players, like do they still care? Are they still following the scene? Are they watching streams, etc.? And then, like we were saying, kind of finding the in-between. So it's like hosting like viewing parties and Smash Fest in conjunction. So you can have the social aspect of hanging out, having a good time while watching the game, while playing. So I don't know, I think it just takes time to stop and look at the different aspects of your community, the social versus the actual like gameplay and the rankings and all that stuff. Seeing like where you're strong at, where you're weak at, and like seeing how well there's like what the crossover is, and just kind of from there brainstorming how to boost what needs to be boosted.
Boosted.
Oh,
is Amir here?
And with that,
Go for it, Marco.
Okay, closing thoughts. You stole a lot of what I was going to say.
That's why I want to go first, baby.
Ooh, you're a bad man. I guess the closing thought is, whether you're big or whether you're small, whether you have like 1,000-man locals or maybe even less than 10-man local, what are you doing as a TO or as someone that wants to engage their community? What are you doing to kind of include others and find out about others around you? And how are you motivating your players to to contribute in meaningful ways. Not necessarily in terms of gameplay, but like I said earlier, like in terms of things that they're passionate about. Is the one person in your squad that like loves to draw posters? I'm just gonna say posters because it's easy. Are they making posters for your tournaments? Is the one person that likes to kind of like be a forum nerd? Are they providing facts and like sharing their data with everyone else that they play with? Are you really engaging with the storytellers in your group that like to write up like do commentary or write recaps or kind of like highlight individual players that are not quite good but they're working hard? How are you highlighting everyone? How are you rewarding people for being passionate? And how are you using their passions to reward yourself and your community? I guess that's the big question.
Ooh, can I change my answer? That was fire!
Oh lordy. Jason?
I'll go last, so I'll wrap it up.
That sounds good.
She's just gonna one up all of us.
I think that if you are any sort of community leader, the most important thing, and it's going to sound like super vague,
Let's hear it.
is that like, do you know what you want to do and why you're doing what you're doing? Because I think that direction is something that's found from within yourself.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many different aspects of changing a community into what you want it to be. Are you a person that really cares, like, I'm going to put Colorado on the map. We're going to be like the strongest PM region in the world. If that's what your ambition is, how are you going to do that? In order to like make your goal bite-sized, like the vaguer the goal, like the less you know about what you want, the harder it is to take that first step.
Yeah.
If all I care about is making people that go 0-2 in bracket have an amazing time, which was kind of like what my singular focus was in San Diego, I was able to make a lot of specific solutions to that specific problem. Mm-hmm. If all you care about is I want I want to make sure that everyone is friends with everyone. If that's your specific goal, there are specific solutions to doing that. There are so many like dimensions to like how you can define success, and I think that you can't get anywhere until you know what your specific definition of that is. So if you come from like a community where it's like things are getting stale, if like you've been running the same like kind of like don't know what's going on for like the past like 6 months to a year, ask yourself, like, why am I doing this still? Like, is there something that I want? And once you figure out what you want, then it becomes way more easy to understand what success is because you figured out what it means to you. Yeah, that's it.
All right, I'll go with the more like tangible advice route, I guess, just because like we've all gotten pretty philosophical here.
Yes.
Oh shit.
But I think that like a really key component to literally any scene, probably almost, I mean, it's hard for other scenes, but we'll say Smash scene is, I would say Smash Fest. And I think that if you're struggling with maybe your weekly, or your scene isn't doing super hot, or you don't really understand TOing as well as you thought you did, or you want to try new stuff, I think Smash Fests are like pure gold that like honestly like almost any scene all over the world in all of Smash probably hasn't used to like the degree that they can. And I think that, say you're a scene right now that's not doing so hot, I think a Smash Fest like is a really good way to eliminate money, which is really good for everyone. People, it's like the barrier to get people to come is way easier if you don't have money involved. If it's all about just travel, that's like one less thing you have to worry about. I think it's like really low key. You don't have to necessarily worry about like running an event, because I think that in itself is a skill that takes time. It's like hard to understand seating and how do you like make sure to find like the people, you know. We didn't really talk about it much, but there's a lot that goes into just running even like your bare bones bracket. Yeah. And I think a Smash Fest is a really good way to experiment with the more outside of the functionality of an event. Like, how do you maybe try out like different ways of advertising? Because the Smash Fest is like one of those things where even if you just get like one person to show up and you two just play, you had a good time probably, you know? Like, it's not the same pressure as a bracket. You can like get any number of people to come to your Smash Fest and like have had success. Like, it really it's like not as much pressure, because as much as people like to be like, oh, the event numbers maybe don't matter, I think a lot of TOs fall into that hole of like, oh my god, only 2 people showed up, like, like, why am I doing this? But like, I feel like if you get 2 people to come to a Smash Fest, it's like, yo, we got to hang out and play Smash. Like, that's like perfect.
That's a solid rotation.
Yeah, like that's like, well, honestly, that's probably better than your 20-man, Smash Fest, because it's like you get to play more. But I think Smash Fests, like, regardless of your scene size, are a really good way to get, like, new people to come out. It's a really good way to maximize kind of what we've been talking about with both the social and the game. Because that's really all you really, like, can do, is just, like, talk to people while you're waiting to play the game, and then playing the game. And then you're back to talking to people. It's, like, that perfect balance of, like, everything we've been talking about. So I think that if you're trying to find something new, maybe your weekly hasn't been working out, maybe your venue's mad because you're not getting enough people, I think it might not hurt to try to, like, mix things up and, like, put the amount of effort you would want to put towards, like, an actual tournament, put that towards a Smash Fest. Because it's, like, that sort of effort into a Smash Fest is just going to be, like, astronomically better. Because, like, people don't have to pay money. It's a lot more casual. People are just going to go and hang out. People love hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Smash Fests. They're underrepresented. They're underloved. They're beautiful.
We're technically at a Smash Fest.
Yeah, there's one happening right now. But yeah, I think we've given a lot of information for people to dissect. I think that this was really fun to talk about. I know how a good time you guys had. And I want to thank everyone for coming on. And hopefully we get to see a brighter future in Smash. Good night.